evening and welcome it is Tuesday, November 25th. It's the Hendrick Hudson Board of Ed meeting. We're currently in session. All rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If I can I get a motion to approve the agenda as presented? Are there any items beyond?
I would like to pull agenda item 3.5.
Okay. Are there any other items that anybody would like pulled? Okay. Can I get a motion to approve the items not pulled from the consent agenda? So moved. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Can I get a motion to approve? Get a motion for section 3.5, special ed. Can I get a motion to approve?
I'm abstaining.
I'm aware. Can I get a motion to approve?
Motion.
Any against? Abstentions? So 5 and 1, please. Okay, that brings us to items removed from the consent agenda, which is acceptance of donations, which once again is, I believe, it is a matching type donation from the Morgan Stanley's Charitable Spending Account program to the parent who made the effort to put that paperwork in. Thank you very much. Can I get a motion to approve the donation of $45 from a Morgan Stanley employee for the Frank G. Lindsay Elementary School and to increase the budget? Second? All those in favor? Aye. Thank you. That would bring us to, I'm going to skip over audience comments. It would be the superintendent's report.
I just have 2 quick updates. The first one and most relevant is we will have a snow day tomorrow. We've been following this storm for quite some time, and a number of forecasters within a certain window of time are calling for rain, freezing rain, and slush when we typically would be out to pick up students between 6 and 8 a.m. And then that storm will turn to many, many inches of heavy snow between 11 a.m. and 1 p.m., which is when we would be dismissing. Typically, we, as you know, we don't call a snow day the night before, but based on all the weather models, based on the fact it was a half day and a high travel day for Thanksgiving, we wanted to give people as much notice as possible. If it were a full day and not under those circumstances, we very well would have waited until the morning to assess the situation. However, based on the weather models, even getting up at 4 or 5 in the morning, we would see tomorrow morning what we see right now, which is mild, balmy weather and nothing. So we decided to be proactive, as did a number of school districts. I believe every single school district in Putnam, Northern, Westchester made a decision to either move from a full day to a half day to close, or they were already closed for students. So it's never an easy decision, never a popular one, but we make these decisions based on the best information we have in front of us at that time, and so we decided at about 5 o'clock this evening to close for tomorrow. And I'll leave it at that because we have 2 presentations.
Made some students very happy.
Yeah.
All right, we'll move committee reports to the end. And the first presentation would be, I'm assuming, Blue Mountain.
You never get applause when there are visitors here.
We would have clapped for you.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Nice to see you again. I'm going to start and end with the same slide. You guys had asked for a specific format, which was helpful. I appreciate that as well. So the one must that I'd like to start and end with is that we must maintain the essential elements of the middle school. And what a lot of people don't know is that the essential elements actually come out of the Part 100 regulations. It's not something from HenHUD or myself or Westchester County or anything like that. They've been in the Part 100 regulations for a long time. And the point is that they mix very carefully. There's certainly an adult component in there, a leadership component, but also a mixing challenging academics, relevant, purposeful, a lot of different adjectives there about the academics, but at the same time to meet the developmental needs, personal development, and personal support of students. So that's something that Blue Mountain was doing before I got there, and we continue to try to do that as we go through, and it's one of the things that we really need to hold on to for students of this age. So as I said, we'll end with that one, but we'll start there too. A few things we're doing well. Looking at the Common Core assessment results, we're doing what we've always done. Students continue to move up through the ranks from elementary through middle school, and we're maintaining that level of performance. So our students are doing about where they did in comparison to other county schools, and specifically the few schools that we've looked at in the past that seem somewhat similar to ours demographically. We're our consistent competitive performance with them as well. So that was one. We're doing a very nice job of addressing those emotional, social, and academic needs of our students. We have an advisory program now that certainly comes right out of the middle level research. It's now in 6 and 7. We phased it in 1 year, 1 grade level at a time. Next year, the 3rd grade level will join. It's small groups, small homerooms, about 12 students with a teacher, and that teacher stays with them throughout their time at Blue Mountain. So now these students with the 7th grade have been with that adult for 2 years, and by the end of 8th, they'll have been with him 3 years. The students clamored for it in the beginning of the year to ask him when it was going to get started. So they actually they appreciate it enough to actually ask and want to get to it. So that's been positive. We have had and continue to have guest speakers. Last year we brought in a brain research specialist. A lot of that came out of the unfortunate drug situations in the county and in the district. But we landed with a really great one, Michael Nerney. He was so charismatic and dynamic that the 8th grade teachers who had seen him with the 8th graders, last year was just for 8th grade, they said that the faculty needs to see him. So this year he met with 6th, 7th, and 8th grade students, and then the faculty during our faculty meeting, and just probably the most dynamic professional development, and absolutely the most questions afterward. They want him back. They have a lot of questions that they want answered by him. So we'll see if we can do that. Internet safety was something we do on a rotating basis. We had that last year, and we brought Mr. James Childs back this year. He's worked with so far 7th and 8th grade, 6th grade next week if we don't get snowed out. He had been hired with the district years ago as a diversity consultant. There are a number of faculty-run workshops and activities, project adventure-based counseling. Myself, Ms. Bell Jefferson, our school counselors, social workers, psychologists, and phys ed teacher have all now been trained with project adventure-based counseling. So the idea here is to work with students in another way, and now that we have this many more adults that are certified to do so, I'll talk a little bit more about where we're going to start pulling some kids to work on them in this manner. The counselors have always done sexual harassment and bullying workshops. Last year we added wellness workshops. We have the Dignity for All Students presentations we've done the last few years. Ms. Bell Jefferson and myself, class by class. We don't do a 600 or even a grade level, a 200 student presentation. We do social studies class by social studies class. So after 30 or so presentations, we work through the whole building. We have some student-driven workshops. Last year there were some 8th grade students that were a little annoyed with Slap a Butt Day. These were some powerful female students, and they reached out to Ms. Boland, and together came up with they actually came up with the My Body, My Rules, and it became a kind of focus for a presentation. We do the phys ed classes, and we separate the boys and girls for a period. Gives the boys an opportunity to talk about their perceived mixed messages that they may be receiving, and then we bring them back together, and they can kind of compare notes. And it's so powerful that I don't witness it. I stay away. It's really this school counselor and psychologist that work this out. So, but it's a great way for the two different sexes to hear and what the others are thinking in a safe, controlled environment. Another area we're doing well is the realistic and appropriate incorporation of the Common Core standards. I meet with colleagues regularly. My whole family happen to be educators, and I become the Common Core answer man for everybody from cocktail parties to family gatherings. And our district, just like we did the same with APPR, I'm happy that I work here when I go and I hear from my colleagues about the craziness that other districts are putting them through. So in the middle school, we've incorporated aspects of the Common Core teaching and learning. Homework has been revolutionized for some teachers. Instead of the old section review questions, they're asking students to make a connection, ask a question, make a summary statement. I've seen 7th graders connect Jamestown Colony to Love Canal. I'm just like, are you kidding? And then when a student hadn't done his homework, in the old days you sat for 10, 15 minutes, or whatever it took for the rest of the class to go over the homework. Well, now the student gets into the gist of what's going on, and they can come up with a connection on the spot. So they're not out of it just because they didn't do last night's busy work. We adjusted our 6th grade. In the past, we've always had a language arts period, so we've changed that to a period of tiered instruction for math and ELA. So each one has 4 different levels of engagement for the students, and that's every other day, where they mix and match in a variety of different ways. But we've expanded now, so all students are getting that additional math and ELA at the level at which they need it. So from a remedial level all the way to a more advanced level. I think we did a nice job a few years ago, and some of you were part of it. We met as a group to talk about math acceleration in the district. We removed the double acceleration model, and we agreed that we were going to slow down the faucet, or close the faucet a little bit for students moving into algebra. I think we were just ahead of the curve for the first time. Well, this year, all of our algebra students, actually last year or last spring, all of our algebra students passed the Regents, as they always do, 49 of them. But it was the lowest mastery rate since we've started. And Mr. Mackin kindly pointed out before that they also raised the mastery rate from 85 to 90. But the Common Core is rigorous, and it is, it really has to be our best kids that need to take the algebra, and I think we did the right thing there as a district. 2 areas we're working on are the alignment of student intervention services, and many of these have initials that you may have heard: response to intervention, or RTI, AAS, or academic intervention services. The building has instructional support teams, or ISTs, the project-based counseling that we do. At the middle school, we've adapted a middle school version of the non-eligibility policy, so that students have communication with their teachers, with their counselors, and their administrators. I met with 8th graders who have failed classes, and Ms. Bell Jefferson met with 6th and 7th, so that the students actually have to have a conversation with the principal about why they're not passing a particular class and what they're going to do about it. And we have some other interventions. Ms. Richter, our band director, has done a world drumming program, and we're going to incorporate that into AIS. And what this will do is have some impact on the CSE, or Committee of Special Education, because with the combination of some of these other interventions, perhaps might change the special education program needs that we may have in the future if we can address some of these needs earlier on. Other area we're working on is the college and career readiness. We are fully participating in the district-wide implementation. I'm behind it 100%. I think it's one of those things that's been long overdue in education, been looking for some sort of realistic connection for 7th grade math forever. And this should be the way to do it, so I think it's a good thing. The teachers are curious and careful, but they're interested. Middle school career day, we had a fantastic career day, not largely completely, because Ms. Miller and whoever she gets to help her. But we're expanding that. We have been to Nashville. We're incorporating some of the elements of Nashville, which is the students have to do a little bit more work. They're not just passive observers of the process, and they need to keep track of some things like salaries and college entrance requirements, and just really listen to the speakers. And it's helped us give the speakers some specific things to talk about, because some of the adults crash and burn up there when they're not used to talking to a group of 6th graders. The other thing that we're looking forward to, it's funny how things come around and come together. The brain research specialist had a slide, and on the slide he talked about things like effort and perseverance. I was at a conference in Lake George, and they had a slide that showed, or that asked the question, do people lose their jobs because of their 8th grade Common Core math assessment, or do they lose their jobs because of their tardiness, their preparation, their effort, their perseverance? And they said some of those things, those characteristics, in past round report cards. Blue Mountain faculty for the last few years have been talking about a lack of personal responsibility for students. So it's all kind of coming together, where as a group we'll look at some of these skills that are career skills, and we can, they've always been embedded in schools, but they've taken a backseat, or even been not in the vehicle for a while now, as we've just concentrated on the numbers. So we'll try to look at ways to bring this back into how we teach students and how they might learn. So back to the must. We want to be able to continue to do all the things that I mentioned. I know enrollment's going down, and it's going to have an impact on the middle school. The middle school math doesn't work the same way as elementary or high school because of the team. In elementary, you need to add a section, you need to add a section. If you need one less, you need one less. And similarly in the high school. Middle school, with that team approach, it gets tricky. You get to a certain number of kids on a team, and all of a sudden the classes seem like that's too small. And we're not, well, it's subject to debate, but it's going to get worse in the next few years, we know. So we're really going to have to maintain all these good things we do in the middle school, and not just lazily resort to a like a junior high schedule, because it's the most convenient and most efficient. So we're going to have to straddle that line. All right, that's what I have for you this evening. You want to do anything now, or just Mr. Mack and we'll go back? Or?
No, I think, are there questions that, for the middle school, for the topics that were addressed here, or?
What's the difference between a junior high and a middle school?
The idea of junior high is much more like a high school, where you schedule by subject and by period. So if you have X number of students that need ninth grade social studies, that's how many sections you have. Whereas in the middle school, it's 100 kids on a team, or it's however many kids on the team, and then they're divided up through the math, social studies, science, and English. I mean, there's a number of different ways they're different, but that specifically is one, that team approach.
John, can you walk us through some of the highlights of the
Assessment.
data slides you have?
Okay. Well, I referred to this. Let me start back here. So the algebra, 100% passing, but as you can see, there was a 47% mastery rate. But I really think Mr. Mackin put his finger on it when he said part of that is the difference between the 85 and the 90. So to me, the way to really see if we've slipped would be to compare it to the mastery rates and other students taking that same assessment. So I really don't know at this point what that would come out like. Before that would be, or after that.
I'm sorry, I'm sorry, just
No,
clarify.
sorry.
You're saying that it's now the mastery rate is, you have to get a 90?
Yes.
So if you use the, previous number of 85, how did that compare?
Well, I didn't do that. That was Mr. Mackin informing me tonight that it was 90. So I thought the 47% was a drop, but I'm sure if we looked at 85, it would shoot right back up.
Which regions?
Common Core.
This is the Common Core.
It's the Common Core region. This is the first time.
No, it's not the same as the regions.
It's 100 passing.
To the assessment.
It's more rigorous regions.
Living environment is maintains its 95% success rate with 177 students tested. That's most of our 8th grade. This is a school-wide living environment, and what we have coming this year, and it's not going to be easy, but what we have now is a cohort that has now had the luxury or the appropriate programming, perhaps you could say, of special class living environment. So we are going to have cohorts the next few years that were in a special class living environment class that was more appropriate for their learning needs, and we'll see how that fares. And the mastery rate was up where it's been in the past. Living environment, we maintain strong performance. Is there anything in particular, or just give you an overview?
I just think a lot of times people are interested in numbers. I mean, people not here, but clearly maybe somebody who may be watching. But
Okay, so for example, what I've looked at in the past, let me pick one that I like. So the current 9th graders in the New York State ELA assessment, when they were in 4th grade, they were 36th out of 44 schools in Westchester and Putnam County. And then when they were in 5th grade, they were 30th, and then they dropped a little in 6th grade to 35th, but then they jumped up to 25th in the 2 counties by the end of 7th grade, and 28th when they left 8th grade. And as I've said to you guys before, when Mr. Mackin picks up, he'll tell you that that cohort in a few years will be in the top quarter of the Westchester County and Putnam County schools in their English Regents results. So that's what I'm saying. And a quick visual. This is a little different than it's been in the past, but the green shows an upward, like an increase, and the blue is either a decrease or stayed the same. So this is blue across the top. I see that. I went through and counted up the greens and the blues all over to see, and they're basically half and half. So this is this year's 8th graders, and you see in math they continued to move up. So they were green, although they're still they're still low. So 35th is not a high score for Westchester and Putnam County. That means there's a lot of schools that have outperformed this in that particular cohort. But they're showing improvement there. And then the sixth graders, there's more green. The sixth graders have been just improving over time through fifth, sixth, and seventh grade with a couple exceptions. But you know, the exception here, you have to be careful when you look at the mastery as an exception. You know, you increase proficiency rates, and you might not increase the mastery rates. So it depends on what you really want to look at, which particular thing you want to focus upon. And these other slides just always show where we stand compared to these other schools. This was something that we've done in the past with these schools that we consider to be somewhat similar. And we've always performed. One cohort will be higher than another. You know, this cohort is a little higher in math, and this one was, you know, lower, but we're tied. You know, we're still. And it also shows where some of these other schools are. We're 36th in the counties. That's not a great place to be, I would argue. But then you look at Putt Valley, Carmel, Lakeland, Mahopac, and Brewster, and they're all within a couple places of us. So that's the company we keep. Are there other things I can answer about that? My point in looking at this, just so you guys know as well, and I shouldn't call you guys, excuse me, but so you know, is
That's fine.
It's really not. That was a little
You didn't see any
impressive.
of us look up, did you?
Well, I said it twice. I let myself go the first time. What I had said to because what happened in the middle school, they didn't have the modules for the Common Core all packaged as they did in the elementary. So we had to make some decisions. And we have more of the hybrid model where we're incorporating the modules, but we still have other texts and other resources. So my message to the teachers was we have to watch and make sure that we don't plummet compared to our counterparts taking the same assessments, which might indicate that we're not properly preparing them for the Common Core assessments if we're holding on to some of the teaching and learning styles that we did before. So it's just something to look at, and it's not a very pure science, but it's something to look at.
In math,
Excuse me?
just thinking in math, or both.
Well, both. And really what Blue Mountain does a nice job is the ELA approach is really being incorporated into the science and social studies classes, which I would argue is what they should have done in the first place. They should have left ELA alone and let them do a little more poetry and you know, fiction, and push the reading for information in the social studies and science. But our teachers, I mean, the living environment teachers always kind of had to do it. That's really what you have to teach for that level of success in living environment reads. Those kids have to be able to read and decipher those questions and other, you know, charts and graphs and graphic organizers. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.
We're just tired.
We're just tired.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry, Mr. Chairman.
You're so much better
You never
now.
leave many times that I can, get you. So I'm here to present the fall academic report for the high school, as we've done many, many years prior. So you'll see a similar format that you've seen in the past. We're going to go over some data, and then we're going to go over a similar format that the other schools have done with the 3 things we're doing, the 2 things that we're doing well, and the 1 must. I figured we'd start with the data first. These are things that you've seen. And we continue to perform, I think, where we have been traditionally used to performing. You can see this is we've been tracking this data for quite some time now. This is an examination of juniors and seniors taking AP exams. You can see down below the 2013-14 data is pretty level. What the first 3 columns. What I continue over the years to bring your attention to is the students scoring 3 or higher. This was an area that we talked a lot about going back probably to 2002 when we started talking about open enrollment and making these college courses more accessible to students that wanted to challenge themselves. The big concern was, can we keep the scores up? Can we keep things going at a level? And I certainly said absolutely, and we saw some spike in the threes, and then statistically we saw a little implementation dip, as they call it, and then we came right back up, and we have been steadily keeping ourselves at a percentage that exceeds percentages that we had when we tracked back in 1999, 2000. We've exceeded it in some cases by 9 percentage points. So we're proud of this data. Kids continue to have access to many AP exams and or college courses. I think it's something that allows our kids to maintain their competitiveness when they're applying to colleges, and it's something that we should be very proud of. These kids work really hard to get these grades. Regents exams, these are things that you've seen before as well. This is for last year's June administration, and what we've done is we've broken it down into total exams in that first box on the top, and then breaking it down by special education and general ed. And we can talk about a theme that we're seeing in some of my concerns maybe at the end. But you can see English, as Mr. Owens said, they're coming out of the middle school strong, foundational, work in ELA. I think this clearly says that, you don't always believe the scores you see early on, because kids are developing and getting there. And, Mr. Owens and I talk quite a bit about that. And by the end, we do have a very good passing rate, and it is in the top quartile of the county. So we're a good company. And that's a team effort. We talk about that all the time. That's a K through 12 effort. Common Core Algebra, you can see here, and I did include the middle school numbers because it is a high school course that's delivered at the middle school level. You can see the breakdown in the total exams. You can also see the special ed and the general ed. These passing rates are commensurate with our passing rates on the previously given integrated algebra. When you look at some of the data, and there's a slide that I don't have in here that came across my desk graphically, and I can send it to you, some of the expectations that the state has put out as far as where they expected people to perform, we've exceeded those expectations. So I think we're doing a great job right now. The math people are working hard, really hard, meeting together, almost like almost a middle school kind of implementation of teaming, getting together, talking about the kids, talking about Common Core. So we were pleased with these results. They're continuing to work hard on the geometry, because you remember we couldn't just stop at algebra. We had geometry coming in right behind that, and Algebra 2 coming in right behind that, and Algebra 2 is looking to be a real bear of a course coming in. It's totally changed. There's a massive amount of statistics in the curriculum, which is going to really challenge where we've been, I think, in the past, but I think we're up for it, and teachers have done a great job. Integrated algebra, you can see here, those of you that may not remember, we had our children take both exams last year because we really didn't know what to expect, and the idea was to give them the best opportunity to get the highest grade possible on their transcript. So the Common Core grades were very good. The integrated algebra, there was a little dip there because we were really preparing them for the Common Core, not the integrated. That was the curriculum we were teaching, and we kind of said, all right, you're going to take the integrated. So, again, you can see the state kind of put our kids in a situation where they had to take 2 Regents exams in math, and not a great thing. So, U.S. History Regents, again, continue to knock it out of the park, very strong. Global History continues to go up. I attribute this to the board inquiring about global history and about graduation rates probably about 4 years ago, and we took a look at it with Dan Callahan and when Anicia was here, and we developed a global block, and I was in that class early this year and last year and again just recently, and that has enabled us to vault up into the 90s over the last few years. So we've made some adjustments to our instruction and how we're delivering certain classes, and I think we've found a way to solve some of the problems. So we're happy with global. as well. And there's changes, there's a lot of changes swirling around global as well. It's going to be a one-year exam. Right now, they're considering ninth grade not, I believe it's only the 10th grade year would be tested. They're all over the place, so it changes constantly. Earth science regents, I personally tell you I was not happy with these. We had some one-on-one conversations. I will, say that, there were some concerns that I had that we addressed, and my hope is that they'll get back up to where they belong as far as earth science goes. We made some changes to the science as far as what ninth graders can take coming in. Ninth graders can now opt to take physics if they wish. We felt that was a good move for our students that we're going to pair that with engineering and want to get into physics and chemistry earlier. And it's something that we had done many years ago. On an accelerated level, we've opened it up to students that are showing ability to do physics. Something that came from the physics teachers, Mr. Benzing. And when Mr. Benzing, says something like that, you listen. He doesn't talk much, but when he says something, you need to listen and do what he says because he's really smart. So we did. So, Bob, if you're watching, it better work. Chemistry, again, Ms. Levaya and the chemistry folks, with the addition of Tom, have really done a great job of chemistry. 116 kids taking that chemistry exam in 10th grade. Doing a great job. That's a great passing rate for chemistry. That's probably one of the hardest, if not the hardest, Regents exam. And not only do we have 116 kids taking chemistry, but we have about, they're following in the junior year, we had opened up AP chemistry this year, and we have about 52 kids taking AP chemistry double period. So, that's a good percentage going into AP chemistry. Physics regents, that's an out of the park number, 94% passing. Again, just very strong instruction and very smart kids working hard. I've used this slide before. I like this little catchphrase because, I know we're making the grade, but I like to throw it up there as a question. I mean, we have, at this time, we're offering 37 college level offerings, from AP to Syracuse, Mercy, Albany, Westchester Community ACE program. Those big 400 numbers are actual requests for courses. So there was 486 requests for advanced placement courses, 418 requests last year for other college courses in those areas. So the message you get from that is when you put those challenges out there for students, they definitely take them, and I think that's something we should pride ourselves on. Other opportunities, obviously AP Chemistry opened up, and the new digital engineering or the digital electronics course started this year as well. We talked a lot about, as I mentioned, graduation rate a few years ago, and there was, concern about, well, where is that 7 to 10% of the kids? What's going on? Why can't we seem to get over the hump a little bit with that? So what we did was we showed you this slide a few years ago, and I just updated it. And what you can see is if we look at just the students here in Hendrick Hudson, you take out the outplaced kids that go elsewhere, 93% of those kids are graduating on time in 4 years. And that's a good number. I'd like it to be higher. We'd all like it to be 100%. So then we dug deeper and we said, okay, what are those other what's going on with those 14 kids? Why didn't they graduate on time? 4 were dropouts, 5 were registered in GED programs, and then 5 were still enrolled. So the good thing is 5 are still in the game, and they're still doing it. GED, is a program and is something they're completing, but is not recognized by the state as something that gets calculated into your graduation rate. So it's kind of a technicality, as far as I'm concerned. It's kind of like the IEP diploma, And then we've had 4 dropouts in this cohort, and clearly I can't go into who those kids are or what their issues are, but these are certainly kids that are at risk. And I would say all 14 of those kids have at-risk behaviors that we're trying to deal with, but some of them are just not overcomable. They're not things that the school can do much more about. So 93 is good. You know, you have my commitment that we want that to be 100, you know, but we're trying. That's what we're shooting for. But we don't, beyond popular belief, we don't control everything. What we're proud of, you know, I heard a lot of people, you know, sneer at the top 500 lists, and, you know, I've read the social media here and there. But I think this is something we should be really proud of. And I think, you know, we played by the rules. We do what, you know, we met the criteria, and we're, you know, to be ranked as one of the top 500 schools by Newsweek and other publications is something that we should be proud of. I would love to move higher, and we'll continue to work for that. But, you know, I think it speaks to the opportunity that we offer. This was hard, you know, because recognition of our student, you know, it goes, for me, it's about students. So, you know, that list could be way more than, you know, 3, 4, 5 things. It could be hundreds of things. You know, but we have some of our National Merit Commended students up there. We had 2 Con Ed athletes. You know, I don't know how many of you know that this school is 3rd all time in the number of Con Ed athletes. I think that speaks to our athletes and their academic abilities, but also to Mr. Baker and the effort that he puts in to make sure that our students are recognized. And that can't go unrecognized, his work. So, I mean, we could go on and on. The state level recognition of 2 of our swimmers, Lawrence Eagle and, oh my goodness, I'm forgetting the name. Anyway,
Emily Sullivan.
Thank you.
Emily.
Good save,
Right.
Emily Sullivan. Sorry, Emily. You know, the list goes on and on. Our drama team, our debate team. I mean, this is an active school, and it's focused on students, and, you know, I'm really proud of all that. So if you want a list, email me. I'll send it to you. Areas of focus, much as Mr. Owens had spoken about, RTI, IST, and counseling. We're trying to take a new look at RTI, IST, trying to get other critical people involved in these groups to provide supports for students. You know, trying to keep people engaged. You know, I think an impact of Common Core and some of the changes to curriculum and also the impact of APPR is people are very focused on their classrooms, and it makes them reluctant to go out and get involved with things like RTI and IST, which are very reliant on people volunteering their time during the day. So we always talk about the impact of Common Core and APPR just on, you know, student scores, but there's also a huge impact to involvement level of people, because they really are now focused so much on their classes and the scores that they're getting that they don't have the extra time to be able to go to an IST meeting every other day or be part of an RTI team that has to go in and observe students' behavior and do different things. So this is something we're looking at. We're trying to streamline it and make it more effective so we can maximize people's time. Classroom instruction, I met with you know, my 2 assistant principals, Ms. Yu and Ms. Nyer, and we really identified some areas that we're looking at and kind of stressing. You know, talking about social-emotional stuff as well, you know, about teachers greeting people at the door and how important these little nuances of teaching are, and getting back to some basics, talking about Common Core, obviously, curriculum without trying to say Common Core, you know, because that elicits a certain response. You know, student participation and discussion, you know, pushing that, you know, teachers need to facilitate and ask higher order thinking questions and not just knowledge and comprehension questions, you know, is very important and something that we're working very hard with our teachers on, and they're responding, and we're having good discussions. A must-have, it's no surprise that we went through 2 lockdowns in October. What that revealed for us is that, number one, if we went back to the things I'm proud of, I'm extremely proud of our staff and especially our students, and I've said this before, how they responded and how they reacted. They did everything that they were trained and asked to do, and as a principal, I'll tell you, sometimes you're worried, you know, because you never really practice what you actually are supposed to do. You know, we do fire drills, and, you know, we don't do them in the rain or the snow, we don't do them in the cold, we don't block an exit. So you always wonder when that time comes how they're going to react. Well, the kids did a great job, because I walked through the whole building and unlocked every door and spoke to them, and they did a great job. But what it did reveal for us is that we have some deficiencies facilities-wise. And this is not to point the finger at anybody. This is not to assign blame This is to just make this aware, make you aware as a board that we have to address some of these problems. Some of them are key systems. We have 3 different key systems in the building currently. So even to unlock doors, we would have to have, I have to have 3 to 4 different keys depending on the door and the wing. Okay, it's an oversight when you put on new additions, new doors, new kinds of locks. So you leave the old ones and you don't replace them with the new ones. It's just something that if you're not paying attention to, it happens. The other problem is that a lot of the old key systems, those keys have been around for a while, and people lose keys. It's just the truth. And yet, probably a week ago, a student came up to me and handed me a key that he said he found in the hallway, but it was a master key to our old lock system. So that key would open every door in the building on that lock system. Intercoms and phones and speakers I've been here for many, I can say many years now. We still don't have intercoms and phones in places that we should have them, and we've asked for that. That goes with our communication system as well, and we need to work with the state police to make sure that they're responding quickly to us. And if it's not the state police, then the conversation needs to happen with the county police. And then also equipping our classrooms with emergency kits. For example, one thing we saw was Mayapack, my colleague at Mayapack, they actually have Rubbermaid garbage pails. They're equipped with water, non-perishable kind of snacks and, medical supplies, garbage bags, a shower curtain if it needs to be used there's a bathroom. There's a lot of different things out there online that speak to this. They actually sell kits like this, but they made them at Mayapack. So we're going to be asking for some support just to make those up, because we were in lockdown for about 45 minutes the first day. So that's a long time. So if something happens medically, the nurse can't get out there. We can't get out there if the place is locked down. So that's a must for us. And what we'll be doing is sending you a little letter from our safety committee, kind of just specifically outlining these items more. And again, not to point blame, it's not an angry thing. It's just when you have something like that happen, you realize how precious your kids are, and we need to do everything we have to do to make sure that they're safe. And if we can fix these things, I think there are little things we can do. It's money, but I think the community will support us doing these things to make sure that we're 100% safe, not 99% safe the next time. And that's it. Questions?
I'll start. What you were saying about your must-haves, as miserable as that was, that emergency kit's an interesting idea. I mean, it's having been through the lockdown, use it as a learning experience. Realize that, these are the things that you probably never thought about, at least so now, so be it. It's, that's a relatively easy fix, I would think. In terms of the repairs and such, I imagine that the conversation is being had. You're sending emails and making your wish list or some sort of discussions are starting?
We haven't had any conversation yet. The CERT team as a group, as the governing group for the safety procedures, felt that it was necessary that they felt very strongly, and I supported their feeling that they wanted to communicate with the board and Mr. Hochreiter about their concerns. And I think we have to be open to listening to their concerns.
No, absolutely.
And then, I think their thought was having a conversation that comes from that communication that would start to address hopefully some of these problems.
I just want to make sure that we do, because, there are, it's clearly we all have children here, and even if we didn't, it's, there's somebody who is. So you want to make sure that they're safe. Looking at the AP, the advanced placement, it went from 2012 to 2013 to 13-14. Went from 247 down to 216, but yet the scores went up. Just the 3 or higher went from 73 to 75. Do you think that that's less children, perhaps? Is it a smaller number of kids, or are they not challenging themselves or something?
Enrollment dipped a little bit.
Okay.
Well, not a little bit. I mean, it dipped about 50 kids. You know, school wide. That's pretty
That's a lot
big.
of kids.
So that can have a tremendous effect on that number. Now next year, I think it goes back up a little bit. So I'm concerned with the last two columns. You know, as a principal, I want as many kids, junior and seniors, that want to take those classes, taking those classes that can, and I want that 3 or better. That's if you're asking me to prioritize those columns, I'm not so worried about the number of candidates.
No, what
because
I'm saying though is what that would suggest is that if you've got 50% of your juniors and seniors, you're not getting the backfill. You may not be getting the kids coming from below, you know, to pick up the difference,
Okay.
unless it's an enrollment issue.
I think part of it is enrollment.
And let's not forget that we have 6 different offerings in Budget Lead the Way. Kids can only take a certain number of classes.
Yeah.
Well, this isn't, does this include what is this?
No, this is
a-
AP only. But
So
what
that's
Alice-
not Project Lead the Way.
No, but what Dr. Gottlieb is saying.
Oh, I know,
is
it
you know,
cannibalizes.
there's only 9 periods in a
Correct.
day, and in a lot of cases, as enrollment, we've been very lucky that we've been able to offer many AP classes for a school our size, and that's been supported by the board and by superintendents before Joe and now Joe. And we have run classes at sizes that most schools would not even consider.
No,
And
like I said,
so my point is that this is based on enrollment. This is based on requests. I would say there's a number of things that lead to that.
Okay, but that's what I was asking.
Yeah, because and the request goes into what Alice is saying about they may have to choose between human geography and Project Lead the Way engineering, and
Those
they may
kids
choose
are
Project Lead.
taking
Right.
2 or 3 musics.
So what we try to do is we try to schedule. We try to take a multiple year look to try to make sure that everybody has a chance to take those 8, we cycle them in now. That's been we can no longer just say we're offering all 18 this year. We have to
Okay.
kind of get creative, and it's going to get harder, which could be something that comes back to you guys, from the public saying, well, how come we don't have this? How come we don't have that? It's going to be enrollment and staffing that's going to prevent us from.
No, my greater concern was that kids weren't choosing to do so, whether they're choosing other things or whether it's an enrollment issue.
Right.
I just want to.
So what you don't see up here is the 9th and 10th graders that are taking AP. So about 21% of the 9th and 10th grade class is taking AP World. So that's a good chunk. It's about 50.
Is that where it's pretty much always stood? Is
Yeah,
around
it's about
20
between anywhere from 45 to 60.
kids?
Yeah.
But percentage-wise, it's about the same?
Yeah. The year before that was 24%. So 24,
Well, there's
21.
different size
It's been
classes
steady.
as well.
Yeah.
So, my other question is, and this, I don't know if this is probably a combination of Alice, John, and you, but you're changing the math program into, I believe you called it, whatever, it's, the math program is changing.
The 3 and 2.
The 3 and 2, but yet, and it's modifying what's being offered at the middle school as well. But the middle school is doing well. I mean, you had 100% of their passing. Why change what's
first
clearly
of all,
working?
Right, and it's a good question. First of all, we haven't changed anything yet. We're in a discussion with, I think, 14 companion districts
10.
at BOCES.
7 now, because it's reduced dramatically.
Okay. 7 companion districts that are looking at this, and they're having discussions about how to deal with some of the issues that we deal with in middle school, where kids, we basically have to decide, well, you get to go into the honors track and you don't, depending on developmental levels. My understanding of what our plan would be is not to eradicate the accelerated track. It's to make available to kids that go into high school the opportunity that maybe they weren't ready for in middle school developmentally. So there would still be an Algebra 1 Common Core in middle school. When they get into high school, they'd have the opportunity to take this 3 and 2 program that would allow for students that weren't in that track and essentially blocked out of getting the calculus, Now they'll be able to reach that with the 3 and 2 program. So essentially, it's just another roadway for them to get to calculus.
So the accelerated still exists in the middle school?
That is the way the plan was presented to me at the 3 and 2, and many of the districts that were participating had those questions. Like, we don't want to eliminate, they'll be more appropriately placed. That's the other thing I want to say. I think the 3 and 2 program allows us to more appropriately place kids. So in accelerated math in middle school, that accelerated group is going to be, I believe, more appropriately the kids that are supposed to and are developmentally ready to be there. When we get to high school, some kids may blossom at different times
Oh, no, they
mathematically.
absolutely mature.
So my point is, what we talk about, and I know Marcia's here, I hope I'm saying everything right. I don't feel heat on my back yet. But what I think we talk about is the appropriateness of placement at the appropriate time. Of course, we want everybody to have calculus if they want calculus. But I'll stop there.
Okay, Joe asked me to just add a few words. The appeal to me and to many of our colleagues, anyone who's worked with middle schoolers and had to say no, and you're playing God with sixth graders because you're telling them they're not going to get to calculus, this is one path for a small group of children. We'll have the acceleration for the kids who are ready in the middle school. We'll have the regular math for the kids for whom that's appropriate. But there are some kids that if they miss that boat in 8th grade and they don't take algebra, they're not getting to calculus in high school. And if they developmentally are ready, that's just one more path to get kids to calculus. The idea is to get more kids to calculus, not less. This is not our program. This is one option for some children.
These children will still, but I mean, if you've got someone going into the middle school, he's 6th, 7th grade, will he still have the option to go, to accelerate, or is it a different, because...
Yes, absolutely.
And, will it maintain the same form as it has for the several, will there be individual classes, like for the, will they have a class, or will it be supplemental, supplemental
In
information?
6th grade, it's enrichment during the tiered instruction. In 7th grade, there's an honor section, or 2 or 3, depending on the kid, the numbers of children. And those kids will, if they maintain their enthusiasm and their effort and their scores, and they show that they're ready to take algebra in 8th grade, they will. It's not automatic.
No.
But, for kids who maintain the interest and the effort and the achievement, of course we want them to accelerate.
No, absolutely, but I want it, again, there's some kids, clearly, it makes sense if you've got some kids who aren't ready for it, or just,
It's another
and
opportunity.
as you just said, there's 1,000 other opportunities for these kids to challenge themselves.
But I do want to point
yeah.
out something, and I don't think that we even when they're accelerated in 8th grade, even those kids that we say are ready developmentally, we're losing a lot of them when they get to the high school. They're not staying accelerated. Okay, they're not doing it. So I understand this anxiety that we have about absolutely accelerating, and we have to have it. But I would caution you, and we can share the data. Maybe it's time for you to see the data that we have, right, Marcia? Mm-hmm. See the data that we have and understand that even those kids that we would say are absolutely accelerated students, and they're our brightest math students, we are losing a high percentage of them.
But are you looking at why you're losing them, or is it just?
That's why I'm kind of bringing it up.
Correct, but I'm saying is the answer to take away the initial acceleration, or to look at why why they're not continuing?
We're not taking anything away, Mary.
But that's what I wanted to make sure.
We're not taking
clearly
anything away.
If you've
but,
got
but
100% passing, that's
right,
clearly
and that's great. But if you have 100% passing in 8th grade, and then you're losing a third of the kids not taking calculus, something's wrong. Okay, and it could be maybe they're not ready.
Well, it could
in
be
8th
simply
grade.
saying why aren't
maybe
you
they're
taking
burned
it?
out by
Exactly.
the time. So
You're
that's
taking
why the
these
3
tests.
that's why the 3 and 2 is important, because if you don't take your car to me to fix it. Okay, I'm not a mechanic, but you can talk to me about what I think is educationally appropriate for students. I think we need to we have to look at setting up programs where we can place students appropriately in mathematics. Because when we get to the high school, we have a lot of gaps, a lot of different gaps that we're trying to make up. And part of it is due to double acceleration, part of it is due to acceleration, part of it is due to a lot of things. But by no means am I saying get rid of anything. We need to augment it so we meet everybody's needs.
It seems though that the 3 and 2 is the program. The 3 and 2 seems to target a different group than those accelerated ones in the first place. It looks like it's two different things. You have the accelerated kids that aren't going the next step. They're getting to the high school and they're not going to calculus. They're
Well, it
dropping.
depends on who you talk to.
Correct. But that's
you
what I'm
know,
saying.
those
Or you
kids-
have the 3 and 2s who weren't ready to be accelerated, and now it sounds like it's two different groups though that we're talking about.
It is. It is.
It is, but I'm saying I think that there's still a group that there's students in the middle school that I think they have been, coming, there's not a ton of enrichment at the elementary level. I think they get to a point they just need it. They have to get it.
I want to say again, my understanding, and Alice can confirm, we are not eliminating the accelerated
I just want to make sure.
Algebra 1 in the 8th grade level, correct?
Absolutely.
But it's clear, obviously, it's changed, and like I said, I just have concerns about making sure that the kids are getting, and you can say the enrichment in the extra periods in the individual enrichment in 6th grade, but some of these kids, like I said, they're coming up and they're just so ready for the next step and for that challenge that, and it's not to be moving it around. It's a program that clearly works. And I'll be honest, I've had 3 kids that have gone through it, 2 of whom are in college now, who have benefited greatly by having that extra year ahead. That's huge. And we've had the conversation where, we've discussed the double acceleration and the acceleration and these different tracks. And, I've questioned, there's questions about, there's clearly questions about all of it. But, this system, I just want to make sure that these kids have the opportunity to go ahead and get this math ahead, and get to this
I agree.
calculus that can.
And as I said, that isn't the purpose is not to eliminate, but to evolve the program so we're catching more people. But I got to be honest with you. If you look at the scores, there's a theme there, and the theme is not around our highest performing students. Look at the center box on all the scores. There's a theme growing there. Our classified students are struggling, and we need to address those issues with program as well and with staffing as well. That's where we're kind of not getting our passing rates up and our percentages. Look at when you have a chance, look at them.
But again, it's two different things. You have
Well,
classified
and
accelerated.
I hear you, but I'm bringing that up because I want to make sure that we're giving it equal importance, Mary Pat. We're not cutting anything. We're trying to make it available when it's more developmentally appropriate for some kids. Well, why? I don't know why you're shaking your head. We're not cutting the accelerated program.
I was actually going to keep because I don't think this is the right time to be talking about the math program. We were talking about high school. But Alice and I had spoken with some other people, and I hope we're willing to hear other options, because I actually have another option. Because the way, I don't even care, that's not going to be a huge group of people going into a 3 and 2. The way geometry and algebra 2 are these days, it's crazy to rush them through those 3. Crazy to rush them through geometry, algebra 2, and not for anything, but calculus is not the end-all be-all. We also have stats, correct? So, I don't know why everybody, and I'm an AP calculus teacher, and I don't know why that everybody looks at calculus as the end-all be-all.
Well,
in the scheme of most people's life, statistics is more important. Absolutely. So I would want to do that.
In a college.
But I would love, if I may, to have the opportunity to speak with some of the math teachers and offer a different. One suggestion right now is breathe. Have every 8th grader take algebra. Listen to me for a second. Listen to me for a second.
Told you to breathe.
Listen to me for a second. Algebra is. Listen to me.
Now you've got her up.
Algebra is so difficult. Algebra is so difficult and is being kind of ignored. We no longer, factoring takes a day or two. That's the problem. These kids get into 9th grade, and in Algebra 2, they still don't know how to factor. In the scheme of life, is it important? No. But in the scheme of high school, it's important. So what we're doing is we're giving every 8th grader, except a very special needs group, and maybe an ESL group, we're giving them every 8th grader is taking a double algebra. If those kids perform at a certain level, they have to have an overall average of, let's say, 85. They're going to move on into geometry in 9th grade. If they do not, it means they don't know enough algebra, and they're going to take a single period of algebra in 9th grade. Because you want to know what? The more algebra they can get, the better student they're going to be. Geometry and Algebra 2, what's coming down the pike, are insane. I'm crying. They're so insane. Quite frankly, we're not going to teach Common Core Geometry and Algebra 2. We're going to give the regions, but we're not going to teach it because there's no more trig in Algebra 2 coming down the pike, right? So if you get more 8th graders really well prepared, maybe you'll get more kids into calculus and AP stats. Possibility. Instead of 3 and 2, that's a possibility. So if you have 200 kids taking algebra, you might have more kids getting to calculus than that little number who are going to mature enough to take a 3 and 2 program. You don't have to listen to me, just as a
I think this
suggestion.
took on a life of itself.
Sorry,
it's a-
because I didn't think this was the time to talk about that, to tell
No,
you the
I
truth.
just
Well,
I
it's
had
a-
questions.
It's a really good discussion, and as the new guy I was brought up to speed by John and Jim and by Alice, and we looked at, so I understand where we are and where we were, looked at the timeline, and it probably is a good opportunity and a good time to reconvene. I know that there were a lot of stakeholders part of this discussion. It was a 6 through 12 discussion. What the end zone or the finish line looked like, whether it was stats or calc or whatever, perhaps some of those issues have changed. And Alice and I, Jim, John, and their team can get together and look at where we are and compared to where we thought we would be when these decisions were made, I think in 11-12 or 12-13. So it's a good time to revisit it. The Common Core has shaken everyone's life, regardless of what level you teach, particularly in math. And we can come back with an update and let you know where we are. I hear what Jim is saying in terms of the gaps for different reasons, and we don't want to lock too many kids in, but we also want to have different avenues for kids. We talked today about looking at some of the course offerings and looking at stats and probability and some other courses that are on the books that perhaps may be a little more relevant to kids' lives. So it's a good time to dust off some of the decisions that these guys and their colleagues made a couple of years ago, and we'll come back either in December or January.
Marcia got up.
There's
What's up, Marcia?
There's another part to this discussion that both Mr. Owens and Mr. Mackin brought up passingly. Mr. Owens, when he talked about enrollment dropping, and Mr. Mackin and how we run some AP classes that are very small. If our enrollment keeps dropping, we can't continue to have such a wide spread.
Well, then we have to
So
talk
that's
about
what he
what's
was saying
important.
about, and he was saying
That's what's
about
important.
staggering
That's where you spend your
classes.
money. That's where you spend your money.
Well,
Who cares if there's 10
if
kids?
you don't have enough kids in the class, if you have 2 or 3 people in the class, you can't
Well,
run.
it's
Oh,
not
there's not
that
2 or
small.
3.
What do you got? What's the average in AP classes? Between 8 and 12?
Well, the cap is 20. It depends on the course. I mean, languages have traditionally been run very small. When Dr. McCann was here, we had to, get approval from him to run those courses, and that's something we do with, the other superintendents that have come after Dan. So we get approval, but it's, they can run, languages that run as small as 8, 10.
Okay. So, but again, that goes back to your
Otherwise, what do they do?
you're laddering it, and alternating years and such as well. So, all right.
Yeah,
So-
we'll bring back an update. We'll let you know where we are. And
I had one other question. Who reports on the BOCES students? I mean, that's part of our career and technical education, yet I've never heard a report on how they're doing, what's happening.
With the presentations.
They're high school students.
They absolutely are, and I absolutely could report on them. We're given kind of a framework of, what I thought was what the board wanted to see. So if you want to see a presentation on BOCES students, I can certainly do that. A lot of some of these students are. I mean, the BOCES students take Regents. They take all these exams, and they calculate into the graduation rate.
Well, they're in these
But
numbers
we
anyway.
could-
I mean,
I can certainly break down some numbers and give you numbers of who's participating in what programs.
Yeah, and they're,
They're probably doing really cool things.
and let me make sure I understand, there are students who go to VOTEC program that
they're
are
here
half-day, and
They're
then there
here
are some
half-day.
students who get ELA and math credit in their VOTEC program.
Correct.
It's good. We have students who are career technical education students, and a significant amount of kids.
Yeah, it's
go
about,
over every day.
it's about 70 kids, 60
So
70
are you
kids.
interested in,
How are they doing? We hear about how all our other students are doing from elementary to high school. How are they doing within their programs?
Fair.
Yeah, but they're in these numbers as well.
Are they
you
doing
can- you can
that?
separate it
Yeah,
out as like
they,
a sub?
they're included
We see
in all these
class-
numbers.
If they take
All
their
these
regions
numbers.
over there?
Yeah, I
They
think
take their regions.
They're right.
No, they're here.
more of a subgroup.
to take
That's fine. I have no problem with that. It's never been asked, and you know that's fine. I can definitely do that in the future. It's not a problem.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
You too.
Thank you. Drive carefully.
They don't have to drive.
Well, this might be driving someplace on
Right.
Thursday.
Be clear, it's 70 by then.
One can hope. All right. That brings us to our policy review. It is the second reading. I believe, Mary, this is yours. It is the Dignity for All Students Act, number 0120. The Board of Education recognizes that learning environments that are safe and supportive can increase student attendance and improve academic achievement.
We had talked about this last time. We only had made a few changes on just changing the reporting requirements and changing cyberbullying to add that in. So this was a policy in existence that we were just augmenting to make it more effective. If anybody had questions last time.
I think it's because this is first reading is what.
Yeah.
Does anybody have any thoughts or changes they'd like to make or any modifications at all?
It's an important policy.
Yes, it is.
We've had it for 2 years.
Just sort of tightening it up a little. If nobody has any thoughts or any additions, can I get a motion to approve the Dignity for All Students Act?
So moved.
Second? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. So that brings us to Enrique Europe, a review of the budget calendar.
Jeez, please.
Hello everyone. We all want to go home, so I'll do it very fast. Basically, we have just one change because the board decided to have one less board meeting in February, so we're collapsing the administrative budget to January 14. The rest stays the same. So in January 14, we have 3 parts rather than 2, and the rest stays the same. Thank you.
The logic to, by the way, just was because of the break. Even, just where it landed, and it did not make, I think we had a conflict as well, so it made sense to just move it around. And we moved the administrative budget to, the section with the less meaty, if you will. Clearly, with the, the central office and building, which is usually is less of a discussion than something such as special ed, the K-12 or the athletic and technology evenings. So that was the logic for that. Do we need a? We don't need anything to approve. This is just for information. Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions about that, or?
We have just need to be aware that
We're on the edge of our seats, Charles.
no. I just want to make sure that people have time to comment before the April 8th meeting, because people show up on that day and want to make changes to the budget. We can't do it that day.
Well, we're having the final
We're having
budget
one
review
on
on
the
the 25th,
Right,
so that was worked in.
right. So I just wanted to make sure that we had
Those
that time for.
Yep. Okay. All right, we did not, we always skip the committee reports, so,
So, wait, we can publish, I mean, we're gonna propose the budget, we're gonna approve the budget on the 8th, but we can already start running legal ads on the 3rd before it's approved.
Yeah,
So the ads don't say anything about the specifics of the
No,
budget.
it's just the
It's just
time
that
and
it's
place.
the date.
Time,
Okay.
place, yes.
okay, so that's, we're good there, because we're letting people know now. So, we have committee reports. Does anybody have any particularly, I don't think there has been anything that,
We did, today we did
technology.
technology, but we could wait.
We can talk about it if it's compelling.
We'll let you use your judgment as to.
Well, we did talk about a lot of different things.
Okay.
You could see there's 2 pages here. Actually, it's all over the 2 pages.
You're gonna want you to turn the paper.
Yes. Or I could wait.
No, you're fine. Go ahead. We're good.
Okay, real quick. We talked about the smart bond and how the money has already been awarded, putting it towards the new security system or phones. There has to be stakeholder input, so there has to be a panel from PTAs, staff, facilities committee. Everybody kind of has to make recommendations. We also talked about that there's a problem in the high school with all 4 of the labs due to the furniture configurations. It makes it difficult to do any repairs on, I guess, the computers. And somehow it was felt that there's a need to be more functional with all the computers and the way that they're set up, that there's jacks on the floor in the high school, and there can be covers put over them so the children don't knock into them, and then there's a problem. Trying to think of what else. Chromebooks are coming. The people who are trainers or coaches will have 6 months to use them in their classrooms. There's different cards, amounts for different schools. I'm not going to go into all that now. They also talked about the particular coaches working with teachers, and time and scheduling seems to be a problem because people aren't always available at the time that the coaches are available. So some coaches are working in the morning, other coaches are working in the afternoon, but during the day at lunchtime there seems to be a problem. They also talked about possibly having TAMA members and the permanent subs receive training in smart boards. File management is an issue with Google, and that's it. Scheduling, as they said, is always a problem. No one wants to be out of the classroom to be trained, and there's different levels of ability that the coaches are working with.
I did seem very enthusiastic about the coaching program that we set up and started running. And the part about giving the coaches, each one of them will have a cart with Chromebooks for about 6 months next spring to use, so they can learn how to use it and then be able to teach other people how to use it. But they were very excited about that. And, they just kind of talked about, how you get people in the building of various levels up to speed quickly. Because you have people that are beginners, moderate, and advanced. And, how do you integrate coaching for those people who are
And different buildings have different number of coaches, so it makes it a little bit easier in some buildings as opposed to others.
Well, it's the differentiation conversation we have with instruction, and we've tried to model that in terms of staff development. Research around staff development says it's most effective when it's within the day, when it's not after school, not on weekends, not the drive-by workshop or even faculty meeting. It's embedded, and that you identify a group of teachers or staff who are specialists, and they train the trainer.
Mhm.
So we've tried to model that. I think a lot of districts have done that with reading coaches, math coaches. It's not top down, it's from within, and sometimes that's a culture shift. But the piece with identifying the teachers and their use of technology in the 3 categories is powerful, because the only alternative is to meet in the library for a faculty meeting and everyone gets it the same way. You know, it's the same response or culture we're trying to change in the classroom. I taught it, you should have learned it, doesn't matter if you don't learn that way.
No,
So,
well, that's what they were talking about, and they said that most people, as far as smartboard technology, don't learn well that way. That's why they don't want to do just one huge workshop.
Sure.
They want everybody to have accessibility to the smartboard while they're receiving instruction. So,
and there has to be a part of the conversation is play. You have to play with the technology and have those experiences in
And
order to.
practice. Right, guided practice.
And it's also giving them the ability to make decisions, be flexible, you know, and I think that builds motivation, because they talk to the teachers and find out what they need to learn, and then can develop programs or sessions just for them, and they seem to feel like that was good at engaging the other teachers.
And they said one of the biggest problems that people are seeing is so much of the curriculum is embedded in smartboard technology that when teachers are absent and they leave plans for their substitutes, you know, if it involves smartboard technology and the people haven't been trained in how to utilize the smartboard, then the lesson plans are useless, you know. So I think that the coaches felt really excited. I'm very excited, being a former teacher, to see this method, you know, being used. So it's such a good model, you know, to have peers teaching peers. So I'm very, very happy. And as I said, Charles said too, the coaches seem very happy with the program. So that's it.
Thank you very much. Okay. That brings us to the conclusion. Our next meeting is 2 weeks from tomorrow. And that would be Wednesday, December 10th, here at the high school. In the interim, I wish you all and anybody watching a very happy Thanksgiving and enjoy your families and be safe. Be safe, exactly. Be safe. Can I get a motion to close?
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Happy Thanksgiving.